Do you know that disability can be prevented at the early stage? Do you know that there are certain signs and symptoms that you need to look out for, especially in children, to avoid disability in the future? Do you also know that certain things that children complain of, if you take notice of those things, it can help prevent disability in the future? Hello lovely people, welcome to my channel. Today I'm here to discuss with you some signs and symptoms that you need to look out for, especially in children, to avoid disability in the future. But before we go on, let me make this thing clear, or let me make this clear to you. Please do not watch this video and then go and make conclusion that, oh, I saw the child behaving this way, so the child has a disability. No. Do not watch this video and as a teacher, you go and sit in the classroom and then you start to be looking out for certain things and then be making conclusions that, oh, this child has learning disability, or this child has visual impairment, or this child is hearing impaired because of certain things you notice. No, you cannot make those conclusions. You have no right to make those conclusions. Rather, watching this video should rather inform you that when you see a child behaving this way, acting this way, or complaining of these things, it should alert you to take the child to the hospital for proper diagnosis that will help prevent disability in the future. And so we are going to look at some of these signs or symptoms that you should look out for, especially in children, because toddlers or babies, they can't talk, they can't say anything. But there are certain things when you see, it should prompt you to know that this child should be taken to the hospital for proper diagnosis. Do you get it? Okay, so when it comes to special needs, it's very broad, like we've said in our previous videos. So we cannot say everything here, but rather we're going to say few things that you should look out for. Okay, so some of the things you should look out for when you see a child having red eye, not just once but consistently, it should prompt you that this child should be taken to the hospital. When you see that the child's eyes are watery consistently, it should prompt you. When you also see that a child frequently walks into things, like a chair is there that is so obvious that everybody should see, but this child will be walking into it frequently, it should prompt you that I should take this child to the hospital. When a child begins to complain, mommy, my eyes are paining me, it should prompt you. When a child begins to complain that I cannot see from my far, especially when you know that where the item is, the child is supposed to see, but this child is like, I can't see, it should prompt you. Now, when it comes to babies too, there are certain age that children are supposed to see. Do you get it? And so sometimes when you are in the house, you can pick something colorful and then be moving it on the child's face and see if the child will be following the direction. If the child as a baby is not following the direction, knowing that at this age the child should be able to follow these directions, then it should prompt you that the child should be taken to the hospital. Or you take something that makes, like keys, that makes a bit of noise, and then ring it in the child's ears, expecting that the child will show certain behavior that will show that, oh, he or she can hear the sound, but nothing like that. You should also ring a bell. I mean, especially if you do it continuously and the child shows nothing, it should also prompt you that this child needs special attention. Do you get it? In the classroom or in the house, do you see that whenever this child is going to read something, he or she will hold the book or the reading material close to the eyes before he or she can read, or take it very far before he or she can see the words and read? It should also prompt you. When a child is talking to you and you realize that he will be a bit stiff at the upper part, try to tap the feet consistently, it should prompt you that this child should be taken to the hospital. Sometimes when they are talking to you, you realize that maybe the child will try to tap himself, beat himself or tap himself or several times before he or she will speak. It should also prompt you. When you see a child, you know, every child and the age that they are supposed to talk, but this is whereby this child is having delayed speech. Maybe the child is a year 2 years, no babbling, no mama, 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 the child is not saying any of these things, it should also prompt you. When you see that when a child is, when you are talking to a child, he or she tries to turn the ears to one side and try to listen, it should prompt you. It's not one day something, but consistently. Or whenever you see that the child is trying to squint the eye or squeeze the eye to watch something or to read something, it should prompt you. As I said, not just one, but consistently. Do you get it? As a teacher in the classroom, you see that this child frequently fails in oral tests. You can give the child anything, he will do well, but oral test, the child is always failing. You realize that the child is always interested in pictures more than listening. It should also prompt you. You also realize that when you're talking to a child, it's like the child is reading your lips consistently. It should also prompt you that this child should be taken for diagnosis. In the house, when a child is watching television or listening to the radio, it can turn it very loud. And that you realize that it's disturbing. But for him or her, it's normal. It should also ring a bell. I mean, it's not just one day something, but if it happens continuously, it should tell you something that this child should be taken to the hospital for proper diagnosis. When a child is walking and you realize that it drags his or her feet, consistently drags the feet, it should also prompt you. When you also realize that the child speaks very slowly or shouts under normal circumstances, maybe you are very close to the person, instead of the child to talk in a normal, I mean, there's a normal distance communication. If someone is close to you and you are talking, you know, there's a normal communication, the volume that you should use. But this is whereby you are close and the person will be screaming and shouting. For normal conversation, the child is not angry, just a normal conversation, the child will be screaming or shouting to talk. It should also ring a bell. When you also realize that when this child is always talking or when he's about to talk, he will be blinking rapidly. When he's about to talk, you should also ring a bell. As I said, not one day something. If you see that this thing is being consistent, it should tell you that this child should be taken to the hospital for proper diagnosis. You see that this child is very aggressive all the time, it should also ring a bell. You see that this child always wants to be abusive, throw out things here and there. You know, it is normal for children to misbehave, especially in the classroom. And so it is not out of order when a child misbehaves. But we are talking of when it is consistent. The child can be threatening people. When he's angry, he'll be throwing things around, destroying people's works. He goes about disrupting others. He skips class consistently. He engages in certain illicit behavior. It should prompt you that this child needs special attention. When you also see that a child has a problem learning left from right, it should also ring a bell. When you also see that you have given a child a routine that it should be so easy for the child to remember, but all the time you need to repeat these routines to the child all the time, it should also ring a bell that this child needs special attention. Do you get it? When you have a child who finds it difficult to sit still, you tell the child, sit here. The child cannot sit at one place for even a minute. It should also ring a bell. When you have a child who has organization problem, cannot really organize him or herself well, it calls for attention. When you have a child who can easily be distracted by things around, when you give him a book to read, he can easily be distracted. When you ask the child to read in the class, the child becomes scared and even will be reading within, he or she will not be able to come out and read very well loud for everybody to hear. It should also tell you that the child needs some form of diagnosis. When you also ask the child to read, he skips words frequently. That one should also what prompt you that there is something wrong. As I said, not just one day something, but if it's consistent, it should prompt you that this child needs proper diagnosis. When a child complains that when he or she looks into books or reading for some time, he begins to have headache or he feels dizzy, it should prompt you that this child needs to see a doctor. Do you get it? When the child begins to complain that he's not seeing clearly, double vision or blurred vision. Maybe, mommy, I see things like two, or it's like the thing is blurred. You need to take the child to the hospital for proper diagnosis. When you also realize that the child's breathing is not consistent, like it's not breathing properly, it should also ring a bell. When you also realize that at this age, the child should be able to at least raise the hand and try to catch something, or raise the hand or raise the legs and then move the legs or move the body, but the child is not doing any of these things as a baby, don't sit down and think that, oh, it's normal, especially the new mothers. So when you see some of these things, don't sit there and then ignore and say, oh, she's just a child. When you get to this age, no, it should prompt you that this child needs some sort of diagnosis. Do you get it? You also see that your child is 6 months and the child never smiles, or the child is even 1 year old and the child will not even use any gestures. It should also prompt you that this child needs proper diagnosis. And when you also realize that this child prefers to be in contact with inanimate objects instead of human beings, or he treats people as what? Object. Do you get it? It should also ring a bell. Or when you realize that he doesn't really care about the feelings of others, insensitive about the feelings of others, it should ring a bell. Something is not right. This child needs proper diagnosis. These signs that I'm going to mention are not negative in its sense. They are positive, but they should also tell you that this child needs special attention so that the child can be trained in the right way for these positive signs to be effective in his or her life. When you see that the child at his age has a very good reasoning ability, he has excellent memory, long attention span, moral sensitive, perfectionism. When you see some of these signs, they are positive, all right, but it should prompt you that my child needs proper attention so that these positive signs can be guided properly so that the child will be excellent. You get it? And we are saying that when you see these things, looking at his age, he's very young. I mean, it's not expected that a child at this age will be able to memorize things like that, will be able to have that kind of reasoning ability, will be very creative and all that. But you see at a tender age, a child exhibits all this uniqueness, then it should tell you that my child needs proper attention so that these positive signs can be trained so that the child can be excellent in life. Do you get it? And so when we talk of special needs from our previous videos, we know that it's not just about individuals with disabilities. We are also looking at children who are exceptional. Do you get it? Exceptional in a positive way. Do you get it? And so children who are highly intelligent, we are considering all of them. They all fall under special needs or special educational needs. So you realize that when I was mentioning these signs or symptoms, I don't tell you that when you see this, it could be that the child is having visual impairment, or it could be that the child is having hearing impairment, or it could be that the child is having learning disabilities. I did not say any of these things because I do not want you to watch this video and then go and sit there and then make yourself a doctor and then begin to make conclusion that, oh, my child is behaving this way, my child is acting this way, so it means he or she is visually impaired, or he or she is hearing impaired, having physical disabilities, for you to sit there and then make those conclusions. Rather, when you see these signs, it means take the child to the hospital or where it is appropriate for proper diagnosis. Do you get it? We are going to take the disabilities one after the other and then discuss them individually into details, and you understand all these things. When it comes to visual impairment, what you should look out for. When it comes to hearing impairment, when it comes to physical disability, mental disability, and all that. Thanks so much for watching. Are you an organization or institution and you need a special educator to educate you on things concerning special needs and disability? Do you have a special needs child or a child with disability and you need someone to talk to on how to groom that child? Or you have a unique story of how you're able to sail through and become successful no matter your disability, and you want to share with the public? Contact me through my email address, pendulaf2@gmail.com, or maacsspecialneedsconsultancy@gmail.com. You can get it from the screen and also from the description box, and then send me an email and let's get talking. Thanks so much, my dear. If you are watching me and you have not yet subscribed, consider subscribing, like and share this video. Have a blessed day. Bye bye.